We see 4 friends walking on a field. When they are near a forest, Mark says his map states they are where they should be. A man of late middle age surprises them and welcomes the group with an eerie smile. He is Darwin, saying the others all canceled this morning. He also tells them where they can set up their tents. At night, they all sit beside a fire. As they look up at the stars, one of them says they are looking at light that may have taken 100 years to reach them. Thus, they are looking back in time. Darwin asks the gang if this is their first trip together. He says this experience will stay with them for the rest of their lives. The man asks if they know where they are sitting, and neither of them do. He says in 1993, a hiking party found 3 skulls, roughly 100 yards in the direction he points at. An excavation took place and lifeless people were found. No one knows who they were. Darwin continues that before any man set foot on this soil, an evil was there that could never rest. He claims to have seen the bones that were twisted, broken, and burned. They were dragged into the earth for the evil to feed on them for eternity. He says there is a custom they carry out on every tour. He shows the group a wooden object he calls a totem. It's a way of feeding the evil and allows them to talk to the deceased. He instructs the travelers to throw it into the flame. While it burns, a story should be told. He laughs with a creepy smile, adding it should be a story they fear. So he asks which one of them is brave enough to speak with the deceased. With all that being said, Mark tells him he is good. The 2 women say Darwin could count them out. Hence he gives Mark the totem, and the latter throws it into the fire. He says his story is about shadows. Entering his story, we see a man running away from a car. He is lucky to arrive at a partially open gate that he squeezes through. This forces the driver to exit his car to do the same. The man who is running away is Daniel. He encounters another one named Terry, making him run to a door that is locked by chains, but he manages to squeeze through the small opening. Soon he sees the other 2 arrive at the door. They undo the chains without having to squeeze through. The big man, Barry, wraps the chain around his fist. He yells to Daniel, asking where their money is. Daniel yells back that he doesn't have it. He adds he told them he got messed with too. He tries to stealthily move his way around the guys who are after him in this warehouse. Once he runs for the exit, Barry gets in his way to punch him down with the chained fist. He yells where their money is again and yells out to Terry that he found Daniel, yet the injured man crawls through an area that allows him to escape. In a short time, he spots something in the darkness that looks like a monster. He hides and sees it stand. Barry approaches him, being told that Daniel sees something. Turning around, his life is ended by whatever Daniel saw. He falls with a missing eye. It doesn't take long for Terry to find his partner like this. He believes Daniel did this, prompting him to yell that Daniel will perish. He arms himself with a knife. Daniel sees the monster slowly walking. He gets frightened by its sharp claw grabbing something and hides from the beast while it is nearby. When he turns to look at it, the monster is no longer present. He surprises Terry, telling him he did not take his partner's life. He says it looked like he perished at the hands of a monster, which of course, Terry does not believe. He gets mad and holds the knife to Daniel's neck, but he tells Terry to look at how he's shaking in fear. He seems to persuade Terry to let go of him. Daniel wants them to leave the warehouse. However, Terry wants to destroy what Daniel told him he saw. He gives Daniel a crowbar. The moment Terry exits the area that offers protection, the monster slams into him with speed. Daniel watches the man perish painfully. He musters the courage to attack the monster with the crowbar. Retaliating, the monster punctures his leg with its sharp nail. This causes him to run away. He runs into a security guard who says he has already called the police. Daniel says that is exactly what they need. The guard brings him into his office and wants to inspect his wound. Soon Daniel learns the guard was lying about having contacted the police. It's something he says to people to get them to leave urgently. This makes Daniel tell him to call them now. The guard informs him of the locked door. They are safe because of it. As he tends to Daniel's injury, he says he is Jeff. Seeing security cameras, Daniel wants them to be played back, so Jeff rewinds to the point where Daniel got punched down by Barry. They get to the moment that is supposed to show the monster, yet the camera doesn't. This confuses Daniel. Instead, they both witness it is Daniel who took Barry's life. He cannot believe it, saying that's not what happened. He even starts to cry. Moving along, Jeff fast-forwards to show what happened to Terry. The footage shows them the same thing, that Daniel is the one bringing about the demise. Jeff says he's going to get help. Daniel's final defense of his innocence is that he says the monster stabbed his leg. But again, what truly happened is that Terry stabbed him. He realizes what he has done and worries about it. Jeff is on his side, assuring him those men were trying to hurt him. He was in the right to defend himself. Once Jeff starts phoning the police, Daniel asks him if he hears something. However, the guard can't hear anything. Concerned, Daniel says the monster is coming back for them. He sees it appear behind Jeff and yells for it to leave him alone. We learn the monster truly isn't real, due to Jeff being unable to see it. Daniel collects a utility knife before he yells for the monster to go away. Jeff keeps telling him they are the only ones there. At this point, perhaps Daniel realizes the problem is with himself. Therefore, he decides to cancel his stay. This is the bad note that Mark finishes telling his story on. Darwin says demons don't always appear with horns and a trident. They are deep inside them all, wrapped in their failures and guilt. He asks who wants to exorcise their demons next. The man named Dan says he will. Thus a totem is given to him. He throws it into the fire, beginning the second story. It is the story of the hidden woman. We see a car arrive at a big house. A woman named Hannah exits it with her son Charlie. They enter the house, where the boy asks her why an unspecified she didn't take her belongings. Hannah tells him the woman wasn't expecting to leave suddenly. She would have liked more time to prepare. Charlie goes into a bedroom and finds a model ship on the bed that he looks at with interest. His mom walks in, prompting him to ask her what if they won't like this house. The answer he gets is that they will sell it. Later, as Hannah passes a room, we see the creepy sight of someone standing there. She descends into the basement and finds a phonograph that she brings up. She calls Charlie to see it, informing him the device plays songs, but it's broken now. When they are sleeping, we soon see Charlie is not in bed. His mother wakes up to see him gone. Hence, she searches for him until she enters the room where the phonograph is. He is sitting near it. Scarily, a woman stands behind him, and she vanishes the moment Hannah turns on the light. She says she doesn't want him wandering around in the dark. Since he's sitting with a glass, she asks him how he reached for it in the cabinet, because the glasses are placed high in it. Not receiving an answer, she takes him back to bed. On the next day, she hears banging from above. Although she tries to ignore it, the noises keep happening. She yells out to Charlie for him to stop. The problem is that she sees her son outside. Scared as to who might be up there, Hannah grabs a kitchen knife. She slowly draws near the door of the room from which the banging took place. Once she gathers the courage to open it, she finds no one in there. In this room, she looks at Charlie from the window, who is waving to her. We observe a blurry person beside her. She must sense the person's presence, for she looks to her side. Yet she sees no one. At night, Hannah watches television alone and hears music playing. She turns the TV off before she heads over to the phonograph. The device is now mysteriously playing, despite being broken earlier. She turns it off and we see a dark person close to her. Facing the being to see it, she turns on the light. With that, whoever it is vanishes. Hannah rushes upstairs to see her son is sleeping safely. On the next day, she looks at the phonograph with him. He finds a photo in its case that he says looks like Nanny. His mother looks at the photo of a ballerina. She says it isn't Nanny because she wasn't a dancer. Charlie says she told him she was. She told him when he was in the kitchen at night. Later, Hannah throws away the phonograph outside. While she's out there, she sees the light turn on in the house's top floor. She goes to check that room and discovers it is dark and empty. Charlie is eerily standing in the corridor. He transforms into the scary woman, bringing Hannah to the floor out of fear. Now she sees her son is actually sleeping in bed. The woman has vanished. At a different time, Hannah returns home from somewhere with Charlie. He tells her she didn't throw the phonograph away due to it being on the table, so she goes to throw it away again. This time, though, she lights the dumpster on fire. Logically, as Charlie is lying in bed, the scary woman lies beside him. He thinks she is his mom, who is at the doorway, witnessing this. Once she turns on the light, the woman disappears like she always does. It has become urgent for them to leave this house. At this moment, the phonograph turns on to play oldies. It is apparently indestructible and inseparable from this house. We see the woman scarily walking up the stairs. She also stands like a ballerina, proving she is the lady in the photo Charlie found. She moves away from the family as they hide from her. They carefully go downstairs and Hannah opens the front door slightly, but it closes on her, not allowing her to open it. She turns around to see the frightening woman emit a terrifying scream. This brings us back to the camp. Dan has finished telling his tale. One of the ladies asks what happened to the family, to which he replies no one knows. They were never seen again. Mark does not believe it is a true story. His reason for saying this is how did someone live to talk about it? Darwin chimes in to say the deceased visit them. According to him, spirits do exist. Moving along, Mark looks at the lady near him, expecting her to tell the next story. Although she hesitates, he convinces her to engage. Thus, she tosses the totem Darwin gave her into the fire, beginning the third story. A man named Steve occupies a bar with his wife, Kath. He congratulates her on their anniversary, and she is not sure if she wants to do whatever it is he has planned. However, he says they deserve this. He says he is frustrated. She says it is not too late for them to leave. Steve refuses to leave, asking if she could make one sacrifice. Afterward, he joins a couple at a table. Kath seems forced to join them. Luna, the woman in this new couple, puts a pill into Steve's mouth. Kath rejects taking it and says they are somewhat nervous, but Steve says they are not. They are trying new things to stay young. Luna says what they do is not for everyone. She believes that only by surrendering one's petty desires can one live to the fullest. She tells Steve whoever gets his body, she is the sole person who gets his heart. He agrees to this with excitement. Therefore, he happily walks away with her, leaving his wife at the table. Luna takes him into a room in this hotel and gets him to smell a small bottle. Suddenly, a great effect happens to him. Throwing the man on the bed, she instructs him to lie still. She spreads a substance on his back in the form of a certain mark prior to handcuffing him. Steve is entertained by it all, until she turns him around. He sees her being very different, with twigs covering her face. She puts a crown of twigs on his head. She brands his chest with a hot iron. Hating this experience, Steve manages to leave the room. He yells for help and sees more people with twigs that cover their faces. They start chasing him, prompting the man to run away to a place where more such people stand behind a partially glassed door. So he keeps running while being handcuffed and branded. Steve is clearly being humiliated for his decision to cheat on his wife. In the hallway, he observes every door open, and more of these masked people exit the rooms to continue chasing him. They are present wherever he goes. Soon he encounters an employee, asking for her help. He informs her of what is happening. Hence, she brings him to a door that he knocks on. A normal Luna opens it. Upon entering the room, Steve sees his wife there, with the same mark on her back. She tells him it's about time, and it's nearly midnight. At this moment, he learns the hotel employee tricked him as she applies anesthesia on him. The next scene has him awakening, restrained in bed. He sees Kath standing near the foot of the bed, dressed like the people who were chasing him. Some of them are with her, yet she is the only one whose face is completely not obscured. We see Steve's ring finger has been amputated, one eye is missing, and his tongue hangs on the wall. Kath holds a knife, asking him if he will ever betray her to the weakness of his desires. Terrified, he shakes his head. His wife says it's the right answer, causing everyone to clap. But since he sinned considerably, she removes his blanket to show his ruined body. Nothing can save him from what he has done. This is the brutality with which the third tale concludes. The lady who told it tells Mark it's a life lesson. He replies Steve didn't learn anything due to him having lost his life. Darwin shares his wisdom by saying the lesson wasn't for Steve. He adds for them to be appreciative of what they have in this life. Dan wonders if a person who has a good life will escape having a horrible demise. Darwin disagrees with this. The final member starts telling her story. It involves 3 friends walking inside a movie theater, talking to each other. Once they approach the cashier, they are astounded by his huge size. Matt orders food, and the cashier, Gareth, makes a mistake that prompts him to call the manager. Entering the area, the manager behaves bossily, scolding the big man. He fixes the problem, allowing the friends to receive their food. As they walk away, the manager continues to scold Gareth. They walk into the screening room, where they talk amongst themselves. They annoy a man who sits in front by doing this. Soon he complains to them about their talking. However, the film hasn't even begun. The one named James leaves to use the washroom, and we see the manager firing Gareth. The huge man responds by putting on a mask that hangs nearby, followed by taking a pen from the manager's shirt pocket. He uses it to stab the manager in the eye, a gruesome act witnessed by James. That isn't enough, so Gareth puts the boss's head into the popcorn machine. He takes the latter's keys to lock the theater from the outside. When James returns, he urgently tells his friends they have to leave and informs them of what took place. He also informs the man who sits in front of them. James tries to escape from the fire exit, but learns he can't. He guesses Gareth locked it. The man who complained leaves the room, causing James to urge his friends to help stop him from going there. The trio observes the man come to Gareth to tell him he has a complaint. Gareth shows how much he cares by putting a chain around the man's neck to choke him. He does it with such intensity that the man's head falls off. Seeing this brutality, the friends go back to the screening room, where Natasha says they have to get out. She says there are 3 of them versus 1 maniac. She thinks this means they might win against him. James says they should sneak out there and catch a signal to phone the police. They will hide, waiting for them. Thus they start to engage in this plan. The lights suddenly turn red, making them learn that Gareth has the power to control the area. They keep cautiously walking until they see Gareth standing close by. Matt advises them to run. While they do, Natasha trips on the deceased man. She falls and loses consciousness. Regaining it, she sees she is alone. It is surprising she is still alive. She enters a screening room that has a movie playing. Using the fire exit does not work in this room either. She sees one person sitting there. As she draws near him, she sees his face is ruined. She hears Gareth walking and hides. The scared lady crawls through the aisle of seats as he searches for her. She is shaking in fear watching him walk away. Soon James appears, calling out to Natasha. She tries to run out of the room, yet engages in the mistake of not waiting long enough for the maniac to leave. Gareth waits at the exit and grabs her by the neck. He holds her against the wall to cut her head with the popcorn scoop. It is the end for Natasha, her last day living in a theater. Subsequently, James enters the restroom. Hearing a flush in the last stall, he slowly comes to it with a wet floor sign for a weapon. A lady named Claire exits it to tell him he's in the wrong room. He tells her he is trying to hide, but she calls him an indecent word for hiding in the female washroom. He shows her what Gareth did on his phone for her to understand the situation. They both hide in the stall when they hear Gareth walk inside. It doesn't take long for Claire to tell James to get out there to see what is happening. Therefore, he walks out with his hands raised, attempting to reason with the huge maniac. He tells Gareth to let him go and he won't say anything. Matt appears behind Gareth to slam him with a metal pole. The giant does not let him do it a second time. James runs to slam him with the sign. Alas, it delivers no damage. Gareth elbows him easily to the floor before he knocks out Matt. He shows no mercy in crushing the unconscious man's head with his shoe. James doesn't surrender. He collects Matt's weapon and strikes Gareth's stomach with it. James slams his head also. It is a moment that allows him to tell Claire to run away. After she does, he manages to slam Gareth down and take his keys. He runs to the entrance of the theater to use them. He finds the key that partially undoes the outside shutters. Being a chivalrous man, he crawls out first whilst the lady goes second. As she crawls, James watches how she gets dragged back in by the man he does not see. The police are now outside, shooting James in the head. We know this only because the lady finishes her story by saying it. She asks if Darwin will tell a tale, but he replies he wouldn't dare. He tells the group good night and good luck prior to walking away. In the morning, one of the ladies exits her tent. She tells her friends Darwin is gone. Soon she realizes her phone is missing. They all learn they had a valuable item stolen from them. Darwin has proven himself to be a fraud. Later, the lady whose story we heard last returns home. While she looks for her mom, we see the television playing the news. Interestingly, it shows Gareth being real. The destruction he caused in the theater is a true story. The final scene shows Darwin has acquired new people at his camp. A person starts telling a story about none other than the woman, who we saw return home. A bird slams into her window, prompting her to look at its blood.